من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Today, as we said, we don't really believe, as some people do, that the subject of tasawwuf, which is Islamic spirituality, which everyone loves, can ever be separated from knowledge, right? We've said this a million times. And this is the right way to do things, okay? That's the correct way. So once a month, we divided up the class, and we returned those who were studying fiqh with Sheikh Tariq Amir, we'll go over there, and those who are studying fiqh with Mufti Niyaz, will be in the back room, and then the rest of the students will remain with me for ulum al-Quran, sciences of the Quran, okay? This is going to be in the second half of the class. So the first half of the class, we're continuing on with Hikam of Ibn Ata'illah, and we are on class number 11, chapter 11. And before that, we talked about the dictionary and glossary of the Holy Quran. Now here is a bigger version, okay? Here is a bigger version, and it actually is almost like more of an encyclopedic version, because it gives you a little paragraph or a little passage, and it gives you how to pronounce it in English. This is a very good book, right? Okay. This is a very, very good book. And I'm telling you, some people think wrong. They think that the dictionary is a book that you go to when you don't know a word. No, it's not how it is. A dictionary is a book that you can read, right? You can read. Just pick it up and read from it. Word after word after word, and then memorize 5 words, right? Word after word after word. The benefit of this book is it has an index, okay? It has an index in the beginning. So any word that you want to find, in any verb form, conjugation, plural, dual, male, female, you can look it up in the first half of the book. It's an index, okay? So let's just take any word of the Quran. You go to the index, it'll tell you the page, and then it'll tell you the meaning of that word, right? So this is a very good book, okay? It's called Lughat al-Quran. Yeah, if you don't need to know the root. That's why it's very good. You don't need to know the root word. You look up the word as it appears. This is another book, which is another excellent book, and it gives you. This is another encyclopedic book. Okay. Yes, they're both dictionaries and encyclopedias of the Quran, and I'm telling you, mufradat in Mauritania, they've put a high emphasis on knowing mufradat, vocabulary words. You need to have a lot of vocabulary words. You need to know what a lot of words mean. So I'm actually find it very fascinating just to read dictionaries, right? And you just read word after word after word, and you learn. Okay. It depends. This one, they made it more user-friendly, right? They made it more user-friendly because you don't need to know the root. In the hands where, of course, you are only operating through the root word. Okay. Alrighty. Chapter 11. Discipline. Here, I'll pass it, take a photo of it, and then if you upload the photo to Google, right, then hit shop, it'll give you the thing. Yeah. Disciplining the ego, page 151. Very important subject here. Very important subject. Okay. Imam Ibn Ata alayhi rahmatullah says, تشوفك إلى ما بطن فيك من العيوب خير من تشوفك إلى ما حجب عنك من الغيوب. Critical, absolutely critical. He says, you're being concerned and looking for the errors of your nafs, okay, is more valuable than seeing the unseen. So it is more valuable that you are sitting and trying to identify the flaws of yourself than trying to have visions. Okay? If you were to see your own flaw, it is better for you than to see an angel or to look at something of the unseen or to have a vision of the unseen, which many in Tasawwuf, they use visions of the unseen as like motivators and nice things that people like to talk about, right? People love to talk about karamat, and they feel that their iman increases when they talk about karamat or visions of the Prophet ﷺ or awliya seeing other things. But what is Ibn Atta saying? He's saying your vision of your own flaws is far better and more valuable to you than to see a mystical vision. Let's say, who is it who saw more than any wali on the earth? Iblis. Iblis, he was residing in the heavens. He was not only seeing the unseen, he was living in what we call the unseen. To us, the seven heavens above us is unseen. Iblis was living in the unseen. Okay? He's living there. Okay? And yet he could not see that he had a flaw and a big problem. Right? What was his flaw and problem? That he loved himself. He loved himself more than anything else. Okay? O seeker, you are eager to discover hidden matters. You desire to know of the divine mysteries, secrets, and subtleties. You consider these matters to be the goal. No, they're great motivators, but they're not the goal. Okay? Remember that to incline the heart in this direction and pursue these hidden entities is not for your welfare. It's not your business. Allah never said to us, seek mystical visions, seek dreams. He never said about this. Right? This is not our goal. This attitude is in fact harmful for you. This attitude is harmful. Okay? It is better for you to view your spiritual defects, such as showing off, envy, pride, etc., and to concern yourself with their elimination. Try to eliminate these things. If in the course of your spiritual journey some mystery is revealed to you, do not attach any significance to it. Spiritual experience, do not attach significance to this. Because, again, Iblis had the greatest spiritual experience of anyone else. He lived in the heavens. Okay? Keep in mind that your purpose is the purification of your ego from evil attributes. اخرج من أوصاف بشريتك عن كل وصف مناقض لعبوديتك لتكون لنداء الحق مجيبا ومن حضرته قريبا. Okay? Come out of, among the attributes of your human nature, draw away from every one that is incompatible with servanthood. Incompatible with servanthood. So that you may be responsive to the call of Allah and His presence. So, if someone asks for what is the goal of this science and this subject, it is to attain servanthood. It is not to have visions. It is not to have ranks. It is to have the attributes of a servant. Okay? There's a sheikh in Pakistan today. His name is Mubarak Ali Shah Jalani. Okay? Mubarak Ali Shah Gilani. This sheikh, okay, he makes all of his close murids working for him, right? They work for him. Not for his house, okay, but for his school. He has a school. So someone once said, don't go to such and such a sheikh. He uses his murids instead of paying workers. He uses them instead of paying workers, right? So they brought that to his attention. He said, I'm not using them. This is part of their education. Service is part of their education. And how can they learn to be a servant of God if they are too arrogant to be a servant in the school that is benefiting them, right? And the school that's benefiting you, you don't want to mop the floors. You don't want to go and change a light bulb. You don't want to paint the walls, right? How can you be a servant of what is unseen if you are too arrogant to be a servant of what is seen and benefits you directly? Same thing with birrul walidain. Birrul walidain. In the Sheikh Muhammad Mawlud, his curriculum has 2 books that they said, if you master these 2 books and you live your life on these 2 books, you go straight to Jannah. Bi'idhnillah. The first book is called The Rights of Parents. The second book is called The Purification of the Heart. All written by Sheikh Muhammad Mawlud. Okay? Why is the rights of parents so important? If you are good to your parent, who is right in front of you, right? Who is a mortal, who is a human, who makes mistakes, you will no doubt be good to your Prophet, his Sunnah, and to your Lord. Because it's the same discipline. It's the same thing. You're shooting a bass free throws in the high school gym. It is not going to be any different when you go to the NCAA gym or the NBA gym. It's the same basketball, the same hoop, just a different arena. That's all it is. So someone arrogant with their parent will be arrogant with the religion. That's how it is. So that's the thing. And so also Sayyid Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, right, of Mecca, his students, you don't know who the student is and who the janitor is. That's how it is, right? So they are all students, but they also have chores, right? They also have chores. And one of the schools of Asia, I believe South Asia, finished 12 years of education. Today, subhanAllah, if you do a 4-year madrasa, you're like a scholar, right? Their system in Pakistan, before the partition, in India, was 12 years. Okay? 12 years scholarship track. 12 years. Now, on the 13th year, he doesn't go out to get the job. He doesn't go out to get a job. He becomes a janitor. Right? He becomes a janitor. In the same school that he was the senior student in, he's a janitor. He serves as a janitor. These people knew tarbiyah. They knew tasawwuf, right? They knew the nafs. And knowledge is one of the worst things of the nafs, to the nafs. The nafs, knowledge will improve you or bring you down, right? Knowledge will raise you up or bring you down, because where is knowledge? It's up here. So the nature of knowledge brings you up, right? You have to make sure that it brings your soul up and your ego down, not your soul down and your ego up. We'll take questions, just write them down so we can get, because we only have an hour today. So, this is very important to understand that our goal, all of us, is to be humble servants. And do not ever imagine you cannot be a servant to a human and only be a servant to Allah. It's never going to work like this. Never will work like this. I have even seen students, murids, very close to the sheikh, very disrespectful to their, let's say, their dad, right? They all failed. They all failed. It's a mirage. They all failed. But he who is good to his elders, right? He will be good to Allah, Azza wa Jal. It's the same khuluq. It's very important. This is why it's a big disservice to allow arrogance to pass through someone, to allow children to be disrespectful. It's a big disservice. Some people say, well, I want to make sure my kids love me. This is very important, but first, make him a good kid first. Then he'll love you second, right? Or this is also why Allah has given you a mom and a dad. Why? Dad will not care so much to be loved as to be respected, right? This is actually a fact. And I used to hear this all the time. I don't care, you love me or don't love me, but you respect me if you're in this house, right? You show respect. This is how Allah has created a man. He cares more to be respected, his rules, than loved. So what does the kid learn? He learns that aspect. And then the mom is the opposite, cares more to be loved then respect it, which is a proof. You go and you see the kids with the mom, chaos is happening. You don't know what's going on. Why? She wants them to have fun, to be loved, to feel good, right? But it's chaos. So you have to have both attributes. Okay? So this is the key, the very important key, that all of us, from the top to the bottom, must embody the ethic of being a humble servant. Everyone. No one's exempted. Okay? Nobody is exempted. If you have a whole community, no one's exempted from being a humble servant until you have a white beard. Then you've earned your dues. You should not lift a finger. Right? This is how, if we're going to be an Islamic community, that's how it's got to be. Once you got a white beard, once you hit the age of 60, you do not lift a finger. Right? Okay? All of our youth and our children, if we're going to teach them to be servant of Allah, first be the servant of what you can see. Right? Before you can be the servant of what you can't see. So serve your community. Put the shoes on the rack. All these is service, service, service. All of us, top to bottom. No one's exempted. Okay? Next hikmah says, and this past hikmah is someone says, what is the point of tasawwuf? Why are you doing tasawwuf? Right? The answer is very simple. Tahqiq al-ubudiyyah. 2 words. To fulfill servanthood to Allah Azza wa Jal. To fulfill servanthood. Proper servanthood. And the greatest rank that a human being can attain is given in Surah Al-Isra. What is the greatest thing Allah can do? Is to bring you up to the heavens, right? To bring you up to speak to Him directly without a barrier. The Prophet ﷺ in the Mi'raj spoke to Allah directly without a barrier, right? In this maqam, in this position, how did Allah describe the Prophet? Did He say, glory be to the one who brought His messenger forward? Glory be to the one who brought His prophet forward? Glory be to the one who brought His most beloved forward? No, He described Him as, glory be to the one who brought His servant forward. So the highest maqam we can have is be servant of Allah Azza wa Jal. And if you notice, as one philosopher says, we are God-making servant creatures. Every human being, if you notice, his glory is that he served the cause. Or he served a God. And that God could be the true God, or it could be an idea, it could be a company, it could be something, it could be himself. But we are service-oriented creatures. Okay? So, the question is what we are serving. Next one says, أصل كل معصية وغفلة وشهوة الرضا عن النفس. This is a big one. The origin of every disobedience, every state of heedlessness, and every passion is self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction. Okay? Self-satisfaction. Shaykh Nazim al-Haqqani, okay? Nazim al-Haqqani, only the wise will understand the methods of Shaykh Nazim al-Haqqani. Shaykh Nazim al-Haqqani is very funny to watch him. He is putting down everyone in his presence. Everyone in his presence is being put down all the time, but he's not really putting them down. He's just making sure that they know that they have ways to go. So they never fall into self-satisfaction. Okay? This is the logic behind why he does that. وَأَصْلُ كُلِّ طَاعَةٍ وَيَقَظَةٍ وَعِفَّةٍ عَدَمُ الرِّضَى مِنْكَ عَنْهَا. And the origin of every obedience, vigilance, and virtue, iffa is to stop doing something, okay, is dissatisfaction with oneself. Dissatisfaction with oneself. Okay? وَلَئِن تَصْحَبَ جَاهِلًا لَا يَرْضَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ خَيْرٌ لَكَ أَن تَصْحَبَ عَالِمًا يَرْضَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. It is better for you to keep the company of an ignorant one, a common man, who is not pleased with himself, than to be in the company of a scholar who is pleased with himself. Okay? Okay? فَأَيُّ عِلْمٍ لِعَالِمٍ يَرْضَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. What kind of scholar, what knowledge does he have if it led him to be pleased with himself? وَأَيُّ جَهْلٍ لِجَاهِلٍ لَا يَرْضَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. And how could the ignorance of the ignorant harm him if he is not pleased with himself? You got to be with people who are not pleased with themselves. Okay? In London, there was one time Habib Omar came to London, and one of the kibar of the sheikhs, big scholar, came in street clothes. Habib Omar came to Birmingham. Birmingham, of course, is Birmingham is like a Muslim city, basically. It's like a Muslim city. Certain parts of it, at Maghrib, if you look down the street, you just see doors opening. It's an amazing sight. And it's awesome for us Americans because they speak English, right? And you make friends with them really quickly. You can make friends, we relate to them. And you look down the door of the street, you look down the street, all the doors are opening. It's like, subhanAllah. It's like you never can be down or depressed in this city because you're interacting with people all the time. Maghrib, Isha, right? And the brothers there, subhanAllah, it's amazing. I was in actually Birmingham, then Blackburn, very similar. And I'm telling you, not only in some of the streets, like you'll have a masjid at the cul-de-sac, at the end, and then a long street. And then there, it's not like America with big yards. It's just home, 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 home. Like Monopoly or something, right? Like little homes, no yards. Just a small front yard, no side yards. Usually the house is like maybe 1 foot separating each house, right? There's no side yard, so it's just homes, home. Oftentimes, the doors stay open, right? The doors stay open, okay? And then cousins will go over each other's homes, take your book bag, study in the masjid between Maghrib and Isha, right? Someone will come out with a kettle, right? With the kettle and some tea, like some chai, go to the masjid, pray Maghrib, sit until Isha. I'm telling you, it's such a good, it's a gloomy city, but the salah, the company, the suhbah, it's really uplifting. When you live in it, when you leave, you miss it. You would really miss it. So Birmingham, subhanAllah, and these types of, because they live together, and it's all Muslims. Not even like 90%, 100% of the block would be Muslims, right? So, subhanAllah. And the Tablighi Jama'ah has done a lot of work to get the people out. The Tablighi Jama'ah there were really big, just to get people into the masjid. And there the Tablighi system works. You could literally just go knocking on people. Today, if you knock on an American's door, oh, shut the blinds. What's going on? Right? It's like a shock. Who's knocking on the door? Right? Hold on. Okay? And then you have people like, crawling under the door. They don't want to be seen. It's like an emergency, crisis happened. You don't know why someone's knocking on the door, right? People don't do this anymore. Over there, it's still the norm. So you can actually do da'wah knocking on every door, right? And spend the whole day doing this. So the key is this suhbah. Suhbah of the people who are not pleased with themselves is very important. So this sheikh, when Habib Omar came to Birmingham, okay, Habib Omar came to Birmingham, hafidhahullah, this sheikh came in street clothes and sat in the back. So people were like, why are you sitting in the back? All the mashayikh who were there, they're like the guests of honor sitting in the front. He's like, honestly, I like to sit with the bad murids that stink, right? Because they're not satisfied with themselves, right? They know they stink, right? But the murids who did good think that they're worthy of something, right? The people who are on top of everything, they do good. If and when they start feeling worthy of something, it loses it, right? It loses the taste. But he said, I like to sit with the failed murids, the failed Muslims who are failing, but they're in the masjid, right? Because they know that they are not satisfied with themselves and they are not worthy of anything. So, subhanAllah, that was a big lesson. That was a big lesson. Right. One time, Prophet Dawood alayhi salam was pleased looking at his men, his sahaba, praying, soldiers, fasting, seeking knowledge, praying. Prophet Dawood alayhi salam gave adab. He made them have adab. He really trained his sahaba, right? He was like the way Umar ibn Khattab was. He was like a combination of Umar and Ali, right? He was a combination of the two. He was severe on them, and he had them going. And he was very pleased at the end of his life watching his men, right? Praying. Jibreel alayhi salam came to him, and he said, are you pleased with your students, right? Are you pleased with your sahaba? He said, yes, mashallah, look at them. He said, I want to inform you. If a beautiful woman was to cross by this masjid right now, all of them would lose their salah. Okay? So why was the wisdom of this, right? To show even Prophet Dawood, if he's pleased with them, he's going to stop pushing them, right? Don't ever be pleased with yourself. Always know. And this is why Imam al-Ghazali says that there are 4 flaws in every Muslim. Okay? The first flaw is something obvious. He learns it and he eliminates it. He learns it and he eliminates it immediately. The second flaw, he learns that it's wrong, but it takes him a long time, years or months to eliminate it. And he has to put a great effort to eliminate this flaw. Many of us, when we learned about backbiting, it took a couple months, right? Like half a year or something to really eliminate it, right? A third flaw is unseen. It's in himself, batin, like envy or hasad or hiqd. It takes him a long time to learn about it and to understand it and to witness it in himself. But then when he does, he eliminates it. That's the third one. But then Al-Ghazali says, then for every murid there is every believer there is a 4th flaw. And this is a flaw, right, that his function is to remind him of his flawed nature. And this is a flaw that lasts him 40 years. This is a flaw that it will last him dozens of years, right? That it will take him a long time to shake it off, right? And what is the role of this flaw? This flaw is like we can call it the spot of Uwais. We call this flaw the spot of Uwais. Right? So what is that? Uwais al-Qarni was a man from Yemen who was a believer. He never met the Prophet ﷺ, but he lived in the time of the Prophet. He had leprosy. And he prayed, "Oh Allah, cure me of my leprosy, but leave a spot so I could remember what you did for me." So Uwais al-Qarni, he had a spot somewhere, I don't know, his hands or something, that he could see it every day and remember he used to have leprosy. Okay? So we call this sin or this flaw the spot of Uwais. Okay? So it's a flaw that will remain in a believer. Okay? That every time he falls into it, he remembers who he truly is. Okay? He remembers his flawed nature. Okay? So look out for this. Look out for this and realize that being satisfied with your ego is really bad. And there are sensitive people. Okay? There are sensitive people who are very self-conscious. And it's very easy for them to be dissatisfied with themselves. So we're not saying you should be like this, but if you find someone like that, keep their company every once in a while and take from that attribute a little bit, right? Like if you're a coward, you need to hang out with courageous people, right? If you tend to be arrogant, like everything is good in your life, hang out with, modest people who are not gifted like you are, so that you can balance yourself. If you tend to be self-satisfied and overconfident, hang out with people who are a little bit more broken down, so that you can balance your attributes. Okay? So that we could do this. Next hikmah says, كيف تخرق لك العوائد وأنت لم تخرق من نفسك العوائد. This is critical. Again, if you want the tasawwuf to work, you have to do what you think is impossible. What you tell yourself is impossible of your bad habits. Okay? He says here, how do you expect the laws of nature to be ruptured for you? Okay? If you have not ruptured your bad habits. Okay? As I think it was, who came first, Muhammad Ali or the Beatles? The Beatles, right? Beatles. Cassius Clay was just getting famous when he was somewhere and the Beatles were there, right? And he had just maybe won the world championship, his first time that he won it against Sonny Liston. And he saw the Beatles, and he was for the first time really huge, okay, famous. People were running after him like crazy. Then he said to one of the Beatles, so this is how it feels to be a Beatle, right? Because you guys are up there, and I'm just getting up there. So one of the Beatle guys, he goes to him, the more real you are, the more unreal it's going to get, right? So the more you actually produce results, the more unfathomable and unreal the reward becomes. And of course, we're not after that reward. We're after another reward. A reward that maybe other people won't see. And this is the trick on tasawwuf. This is why it's very tricky. You put in a lot of effort, no one will see the reward that you get. That reward will be between you and yourself. Right? It will be between you and yourself. Okay? So, what he's talking about here, how do you expect Allah Azza wa Jal to draw you near, to do favors for you, right? To purify you, to bring you closer to the awliya, to change the situation if you haven't changed your own situation. So your war is against your own, our war is against our own bad habits. Okay, and this is the hardest thing. The habit is the hardest thing to break. The habit. The one-time sin is not something you have to worry about. It's a one-time thing, one-time incident. Even if it happened in front of people, they'll forgive you, right? One-time thing. But if it's daily, weekly, monthly, this is the habit. Your life should revolve around this habit. Breaking this habit. Okay? And how do you break this habit? Sometimes it's a non-stop effort, but sometimes there are just literal physical means. Okay? Every sin that we do has like triggers. And there are times that we do it. And there are times we don't do it. If we keep a log and we have, everything's data driven, right? Today, everything is data driven. Your behavior is taking statistics. Everything is a statistic. Okay? Even they know where to put the best place to put a gas station. Where is the best put the most expensive stuff in the store, right? There's a reason they put the milk in the back, right? So that you have to walk through the whole supermarket and maybe you'll see something and buy something else, right? Or the lower the price of the milk, right? To bring you into the shop because that's the only price you remember, but secretly they'll raise the price of the onions, they'll raise the price of the rice, they'll raise the price of the peppers, right? And they'll make up the money that way. Everything is data driven. If the most important thing is our deeds, then we should have data. And that's why we have, like last week we talked about the charts. The charts. If there is a wrong action that we do repeatedly, we should mark down, when do I do it? Have I eaten before this or after this? How is my sleep? State of sleep? What company am I in? What time of day is it? If you can find a pattern, then it will help you stop this action. But moreover than this, Allah will guide you, okay, to the solution to this if we remove the love of dunya from our hearts. Shaitan attacks the one who loves the dunya. Okay? Shaitan has access to the heart of people. He can enter and whisper. And someone once asked, okay, "Oh Allah, why do you allow Shaitan to visit some people and trick them and others not?" Okay? This is like a fable, it's not a hadith or anything. So the answer was, because every father has the right by Sharia to visit his daughter. This is by Sharia, right? Every father, he has the right to visit his daughter. Yani your daughter gets married, you have the right by Sharia to knock on the door and pay her a visit. Okay? And the dunya is the daughter of Iblis. The dunya is the daughter, the worldly temptations is the daughter of Iblis. So if you house his daughter in your heart, Iblis has the right to come and visit and trick you and remove you and harm you. So who is the one most immune from the trick of Iblis? The one who has no love of dunya. the one who has no love of dunya, then he is most immune from the trickery of Iblis. Okay? Now, there's something about hisab which differs from athar. There is taking into account our good deeds and bad deeds are written in the account is one subject. The effects of things is another subject. Let's take an example. If you intended to do a sin, okay, but something interfered and you didn't do the sin, are you getting punished or not? Do you get written or not? It's not written. We know that, right? Prophet ﷺ said, if you intended to do a sin and let's say the power went out, so you got stuck, so you didn't commit your sin that day, it's not written for you. But the ulama, awliya tell us, if you intended a sin and something stopped you from doing it, okay, accidentally, the negative effect is still inside you. Right? One of the ulama of Hadramaut was asked, who is barred from the nur of Allah? Okay? Is it the sinner? He said, not only the sinner, even the one who just intends to sin. Okay? Not only the sinner, even the one he intends to do it. So even when you don't, something is not written against you as a sin, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a bad effect on you. It does have a bad effect on you. Let's take another example. The meat that is not halal for us to eat. Okay? It's not halal for us to eat. If someone lied and said, this meat is halal, and he told a lie, okay? And you ate it, because you trusted him. Do you have a sin against you? You do not. But we do know that may have a negative effect on yourself, on your body. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ says, and the Quran says, Kulu min at-tayyibati wa'amalu salihah. Eat wholesome food and do good deeds. So what did the ulama say? That means wholesome food will lead to good. The opposite is true. Mafhum al-mukhalafa. Unwholesome food will lead to bad deeds. Right? And there's a sheikh here actually. He's Naqshbandi. And he's from the Naqshband Jama'at al-Tabligh as well. His name is Sheikh Khokhar. And Sheikh Khokhar, maybe some of you know him. Khokhar. He said one of the first lessons he gives, he says, make sure your food is halal. We believe if your food is not pure, your deeds cannot be pure. Something will happen, okay? Because the food that you're eating is not pure. So we say about this, it's very important to know, it might not count as a bad deed technically, but it will still have a bad effect on you. So someone who desires sins, but doesn't do it because of something. This is why it's most important to make us, as Ibn Arabi said, it is more important to love the good and hate the bad than to actually do a lot of good and do a lot of bad, right? Or avoid a lot of bad. Ibn Arabi went deeper in the matter, and he said it's more important that you love the good, okay, and hate the bad. And what is the dua of the Quran? It is not, oh Allah, make us do so much good. It is, oh Allah, make us love Iman and make it beautiful in our hearts and make us hate kufr and fusuq and isyan. تمكن حلاوة الهوى من القلب هو الداء العضال. All right, this is a really scary hikmah, and he says, incurable sickness results when the sweetness of passion takes possession of the heart. This is why we have to repeat this dua over and over and over. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. Make hateful to us. Make it hateful to us. Disbelief, fusuq, immoral sins and behavior, and disobedience. Immoral acts and disobedience. Make it hateful to us. Okay? Something that is hateful to you, you will leave it as soon as you can. Okay? This is such an important dua. Repeat it again. This dua is from Surah Al-Insan, I believe. Allahumma habbib ilayna, or Hujurat. Surah Al-Hujurat. Oh Allah, make beloved to us Iman and make it sweet in our hearts, beautiful in our hearts. And make hateful to us kufr, disbelief, and fusuq, immorality, and isyan, disobedience. Disobedience. I want to note in this hadith, in this dua, Allah separates, right? Fusuq, kufr, fusuq, and isyan. Because some people think that what is wrong, okay, what is wrong, nice stick. Show everyone that stick. That is a good stick. Just take that rubber thing off the bottom. Just take that piece of rubber off the bottom. Okay? Some people think that the wrong in the sight of Allah is merely immorality, right? Is merely immorality. Yani some people will have a technical problem in their theology, right? And they will say, look, at least I'm in the masjid, I'm not in a bar, right? No, right? There are three aspects here. Your theology has to be correct. This is a big deal. And some people say, look, he's in the mosque, he's doing good, he's giving charity. Why are arguing and attacking him over one piece of theology? No, because Allah made it a big deal. That's why. We don't decide what's a big deal. Allah decides what's a big deal. So if the theology is wrong, that's a problem. Fusuq, we all know is wrong. Immorality. And unfortunately, sometimes the allies in theology will overlook the immoral behavior of one of their people. Right? Immoral behavior. This is number two. And then number three, isyan, disobedience. Because not every act of disobedience, neither is it theologically a problem, and nor does it seem immoral, but it's a sin. Right? There are some, why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal is always looking for, He wants us to be complete. Completely for Him. So some sins are not, you look at the sin, and you're like, it's not immoral, it's not theological, right? And you take it lightly. This means you're taking Allah lightly. You're taking Allah lightly, right? Certain sins like this, and people wonder, can it really be a problem, right? Can it really be, like, let's take some examples. For example, it's not permissible for a man, now we have to say for men too, it used to be only women, right? But for men too, to go and get their plucking done and have their eyebrow to be like a perfect line, right? If it's in the past, khalas, not a problem. Don't go and judging people, maybe it's in their past, right? But you can't do this. Now someone might say, really? Is that big of a deal? It's not an immoral act. No one will say that you're an immoral person, but it's isyan, right? Because He said do one thing and you did the opposite. And He said don't do one thing and you went and didn't do it, right? So it's isyan. It's a disobedience, right? So this dua is reminding us, don't judge the disobedience from yourself. Let Allah decide what we have to avoid. Okay? That's just an example. Okay? So, تمكن الهوى تمكن حلاوة الهوى من القلب هو الداء العضال. Okay? When something is truly beloved to you, it becomes very hard to remove it. Right? Very hard to remove it. Okay? So you have to make a dua. We have to cure that with dua. And this is why another attribute of Muslim kids, right? Why is it that you want to keep your kids pure? There's a tension here, very important, for us and for our children. You want to keep them pure, but you don't want to keep them like on crutches, right? Why do you want to keep them pure? Because you want them to grow up, accustomed to certain things, so that when they see sin, it feels bad. It feels they don't want to do that, right? They do it with the Amish kids. The Amish kids, they grow up in Pennsylvania. They grow up in the farms. They grow up in nature. They grow up in all these beautiful things. Now, what do? They do this very smart thing. And they give the kid a whole bunch of money, and they tell them, for 3 weeks, you do not have to follow any Amish rules. The kid turns 17, they do this to them, okay? And they take them to Manhattan. And they give them the money, right? I think secretly they're hoping the money runs out or something, right? But they give him money, and he has no rules. Now, what happens, according to this interview, this was done by actually the BBC, did this report on them, or some other British channel. The guy says they all come back, usually before the 3 weeks, right? And they said to the kids, aren't you tempted to do these things? Don't you want to do these things? No, they said, I didn't like it. As soon as I went, I didn't like it. Everyone's mean, everyone's rude, everyone's walking, everyone's fast, right? And the music's loud, the lights are too bright, so he didn't like it. So he left. Now he's coming with conviction, right? So you want them to have the conviction, but we want to be accustomed to purity. And we can accustom ourselves. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does something for 21 days straight has accustomed himself to it. That's not hard. 21 days straight. That's not difficult. You accustom to yourself, okay? Now, a lot of people have difficulty leaving off music, right? A lot of people have difficulty of it. But if you look at some of the people who don't, you can give the most beautiful music to hear, and he gets upset. They get upset. They don't like it, right? Why? Habit. So don't underestimate the power of habits, good habits. It doesn't have to have logic behind it. It's just a good habit, like the Pavlovian dog. It's a habit, right? Okay. So we also were taught, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ عَادَ وَلَوْ الْعِبَادَةِ. Everything is a habit, even worship. Even worship becomes a habit. Okay? Your body gets used to getting up for Fajr. Your body gets used to it. Okay? It's just accustomed to it. And if you don't get up for Fajr, you get upset. Right? This is a good habit. So this is why, now in contrast, the one who lived his whole life in sin, he has a positive and a negative, right? He has a positive, according to Umar bin Khattab, and common sense, right? If he lived his whole life in sin and he's making a U-turn, his conviction will be very strong, right? Because he had access to all the sins. He's making a U-turn based upon strong conviction, okay? So his action is actually worth more because it's based on conviction. But what's the negative? It's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks. It's very hard to teach a person to change their habits, okay? Very difficult. So he will love something and he may continue to love it until the day he dies. And, if that's something that's prohibited, it becomes a barrier to his advancement. It's a barrier for his advancement. So there's positive and negative, and you hope to be somewhere in the middle between having good habits, but also not being Muslim culturally, being Muslim by conviction, not just by culturally. Okay? And one of the ulama said, if you want to bring the two together, then one of the ways is that the home is the most important thing. The home is where you really build your habits. So if all the habits in the home are fine, then even exposure outside the home, okay, maybe after a certain age, exposure outside the home will not harm him as much. So if your home is very good and healthy and stuff, then after a certain age, if someone's exposed to stuff outside, inshallah, it won't harm him as much. And he will be sort of vaccinated from that. I believe in vaccinating because you live in a toxic environment. One of the worst things to do is never expose them, right? And one of the worst things to do is to expose them prematurely. So it's a balance. You expose a baby, you don't say, oh, well, the world is dangerous out there, right? So let me put a 1-year-old in the street. Or the world is dangerous out there, or a lot of sicknesses, so let me expose the chest of my newborn baby so he can get strong. You're going to kill him, right? But at a certain age, when it's determined that he's strong enough, then he can be exposed. Okay, so we'll go over one more hikmah. We're going to have to divide this chapter into 2 weeks. By the way, next week, Ustad Tariq's class is continuing. Dr. Nibal's class isn't continuing, but my class is off because I'll be at the Convert Con. The Convert Conference, any convert you know who cannot afford the ticket, forget it. We don't care about the money, right? The money is for those who have to help us cover the cost. Just tell them. to show up, all right? Or we have tickets, we can give it to them so that no one misses out on this beautiful event that we're going to have April 17th, next Sunday, inshallah, 11 o'clock. No, it's in Rutgers. Rutgers. The question is, are non-reverts invited? No, they're not invited, okay? They're not invited, actually. Because why? It becomes pointless to have a convert conference and then there's 1 out of 5 person is a convert, right? The point is we want, okay, them to be an environment where they're the majority, okay, converts are the majority, because that's what we're told that benefits. But there's no harm if you're going to come and stop by, say salam, give support, but don't hog up their space, okay? Don't hog up their space, okay? I think we'll stop here because Mufti is waiting, and Ustaz Tariq has fiqh as well. So we'll stop here, and next week we'll continue on page 155. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum.